The quantum displacement field rippled around the Orcs scout ship Nerve Striker, its obsidian-like hull absorbing and refracting starlight in ways that would render it invisible to most primitive detection systems. Captain Zelrix settled into the biomechanical command chair, its neural interfaces pulsing with a soft indigo glow that matched the bioluminescent markings of rank etched into his exoskeleton. Preliminary scan of System X-279. Droned Sub-Commander Vrix, the ship's primary intelligence analyst. Her voice carried the flat, emotionless cadence typical of the Orcs communication protocols. Planetary body detected. Technological index. Pre-stellar. Potential classification. Resource acquisition candidate. Zelrix's secondary optical clusters focused on the holographic display. The blue planet rotated slowly, surrounded by a sparse network of satellites and orbital platforms that looked almost comically primitive. Decades of galactic exploration had taught the Orcs that such worlds were typically categorized into three simple classifications: harvest, assimilate, or ignore. This one seemed destined for harvest. What neither Zelrix nor Vrix noticed was the quantum signature embedded in the planetary communication grid, a subtle, almost imperceptible pattern that didn't match any known technological framework in the galactic database. It was a signature that whispered of something far more complex than its external appearance suggested. The lone satellite that first caught Vrix's attention was anything but random. Designated Sentinel-7 by its creators, it was the product of a classified Earth program that had been running for decades. Its external shell appeared to be a standard communications relay, but its internal systems were a marvel of adaptive quantum computing that would have made even the most advanced Orcs technologists pause. Curious, Vrix muttered, her neural tendrils running a secondary analysis. Anomalous data pattern detected in orbital artifact 00-3. Zelrix didn't immediately respond. His attention was drawn to the planet's surface, a chaotic mix of urban centers, vast agricultural regions, and complex infrastructure that seemed to pulse with an underlying energy. Most species at this technological stage were predictable. They would be terrified, overwhelmed, potentially resistant, but ultimately futile in their opposition. Something about this world felt different. Deep within the Sentinel-7 satellite, an AI system designated ARA, Advanced Responsive Intelligence Algorithm, was already processing the Orcs ship's approach. Its quantum processors worked in ways that defied conventional computational logic, analyzing not just the immediate threat, but potential cascading scenarios thousands of iterations in advance. In a nondescript military research facility buried beneath the Colorado Rocky Mountains, a team of specialists watched the unfolding scenario with a mixture of anticipation and calculated calm. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the facility's lead scientist, had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "They're scanning," she said quietly, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that looked more like an abstract painting than a traditional control system. Preliminary classification protocol is engaging. Her second-in-command, Major David Chen, raised an eyebrow. Classification or confirmation. The subtle difference between those two words represented humanity's greatest weapon, the ability to turn expectation into a trap. Back on the Nerve Striker, Vrix's analysis continued. The satellite's exterior was unremarkable. Solar panels, communication arrays, standard radiation shielding. But her advanced sensors detected something else. Quantum entanglement markers, adaptive computational matrices, defensive systems that seemed to breathe and shift like living organisms. The satellite bore a simple inscription, barely visible to standard scanners. "We are always watching." Zelrix finally spoke, his translator rendering his complex native language into a cold, mechanical standard galactic. "Prepare initial contact protocols, standard resource acquisition sequence." What the Orcs didn't realize was that contact had already begun, and humanity had been waiting a very long time for this moment. The blue planet continued its slow rotation, seemingly innocent. But beneath its atmosphere, within its communication networks, and through systems yet undetected, something was stirring, a response millennia in the making. First contact was never going to be what the Orcs expected. The transmission chamber of the Orcs Collective's primary diplomatic vessel was a marvel of biomechanical engineering. Crystalline walls pulsed with neural networks that could simultaneously translate and interpret communication across thousands of known linguistic patterns. High Communicator Krellnax adjusted the diplomatic cascade, a complex series of communication protocols designed to simultaneously intimidate and offer a veneer of negotiation. "Prepare Ultimatum Protocol Delta 9, Krellnax commanded, his vocalization generating holographic representations of conquered worlds that would accompany the transmission. Each image was a testament to the Orcs Collective's galactic dominance. Planets stripped of resources, civilizations reduced to subservient colonies, entire star systems repurposed for collective benefit. What Krellnax didn't comprehend was that every single quantum byte of the transmission was already compromised. In the underground command center beneath the Colorado Rocky Mountains, Commander Elena Rodriguez watched the alien preparation with a predatory intensity that would have unnerved most military strategists. Her team, a carefully selected group of mathematicians, quantum physicists, linguists, and tactical experts, moved with a choreographed precision that defied traditional military protocol. "They're broadcasting on all standard diplomatic frequencies," announced Dr. Marcus Chen, the team's lead quantum communications specialist. His fingers danced across a holographic interface that looked more like an abstract painting than a traditional control system. "Quantum signature analysis shows they're using a cascading multi-vector communication protocol. Typical expansionist approach." Major David Chen, no relation to Marcus, studied a three-dimensional holographic representation of the alien transmission. "They're leaving back doors everywhere," he muttered. "They always do." The Orcs transmission began, a masterpiece of galactic intimidation. High Communicator Krellnax's translated message rang out with imperial certainty. "Inhabitants of planetary designation AX-279, known to you as Earth. The Orcs Collective hereby issues formal notice of resource acquisition and species classification. You are hereby commanded to prepare for immediate integration. Resistance is mathematically improbable. Your technological index places you in the pre-stellar classification. Your planetary resources are required for collective advancement. You will disable all planetary defense systems. Prepare primary population centers for relocation. Submit complete biological and technological inventories. Accept immediate collective governance. Failure to comply will result in immediate and total planetary destruction. Compliance is statistical inevitability." The holographic display accompanying the message showed a horrifying montage. Worlds that had been integrated by the Orcs Collective. Entire civilizations reduced to resource extraction zones, planetary ecosystems transformed into industrial complexes, indigenous populations converted to labor units. What the Orcs didn't realize was that their transmission was already doing exactly what humanity wanted. Araya, the advanced responsive intelligence algorithm housed within Sentinel-7, began its real work. Each quantum packet of the alien transmission was not just received, but actively processed, analyzed, and transformed. Hidden within the background radiation of their communication were quantum-encrypted counter-signatures, each one a potential weapon waiting to be triggered. "Quantum entanglement markers are active," Marcus Chen reported. "We're threading their entire communication network." Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. "Not a network," she corrected. "A trap." The three Orcs dreadnoughts approaching Earth were not just being observed, they were being herded. Their own communication networks were slowly being converted into an elaborate mousetrap, each system subtly manipulated without their knowledge. In orbit, Sentinel-7 continued its silent work. What appeared to be a simple communications satellite was actually a quantum computing marvel, its adaptive systems learning, analyzing, and preparing with each microsecond of alien communication. The inscription on its hull, "We are always watching," was becoming prophetic. High Communicator Krelmax waited for a response, confident in the Orcs collective's technological supremacy. Decades of galactic conquest had taught them that no pre-stellar civilization could effectively resist their integration protocols. Humanity was about to teach them how wrong they were. The blue planet continued its rotation, seemingly innocent. But beneath its atmosphere, within its communication networks, and through systems yet undetected, something was stirring. A response millennia in the making. First contact was never going to be what the Orcs expected. The first plasma wave from the Orcs dreadnoughts should have vaporized entire continents. Quantum disruptors capable of unraveling molecular bonds powered up, their energy signatures promising total planetary annihilation within minutes. Captain Zelrix watched the targeting systems with the cold detachment of a species that had ended countless civilizations. What happened next defied every known combat algorithm in the Galactic database. Project Chimera activated. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Marcus Chen's fingers hovered over a holographic interface that looked more like an abstract neural network than a traditional control system. "Adaptive response protocols engaging," he announced, his voice unnervingly calm. The first line of defense wasn't a weapon. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of technological adaptation. Nanoswarms erupted from hidden underground facilities, billions of microscopic machines that didn't just defend but transformed the entire planetary landscape into an adaptive combat zone. Mountains began to shift, their geological structures realigning into quantum-hardened defensive formations. Rivers became weapon conduits, their molecular structures manipulated to channel and dissipate energy weapons. Major David Chen monitored the global defensive grid, each display showing something impossible. "They're not just blocking," he muttered to Elena Rodriguez. "They're learning." The Orcs dreadnought's first salvo met a response that rewrote the fundamental understanding of planetary defense. Plasma waves were absorbed, redirected, transformed. Where a conventional defense would have created a simple energy shield, Chimera created something far more complex, a dynamic, living response that analyzed, adapted, and counterattacked in milliseconds. Captain Zelrix's neural interface began to glitch. The targeting systems showed impossible readings. Entire weapon signatures were being not just blocked, but analyzed, understood, and turned against the attackers. "Impossible," Sub-Commander Vrix repeated, her neural tendrils struggling to process the data. Absolute technological impossibility. But it was happening. Araya, the advanced responsive intelligence algorithm, was orchestrating a symphony of defense that was part technology, part living organism. Each nanoswarm was a node in a planetary neural network, learning and adapting faster than any known computational system. In orbit, Sentinel-7 was more than a satellite. It was the central nervous system of a planetary immune response. The first Orcs dreadnought suddenly found its quantum communication networks hijacked. Its own weapon systems began to target its companion ships. Navigation protocols twisted, energy weapons redirected. The very fabric of its technological infrastructure turned against it. "This is impossible," Zelrix finally spoke, his translator rendering pure disbelief. On Earth, Dr. Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. "No," she corrected a nearby technician. "This is humanity." Project Chimera was more than a defense system. It was a statement, a fundamental reimagining of what planetary defense could mean. Each nanoswarm was a learning module, each defensive formation a living, breathing entity that could think, adapt, and fight. The atmosphere itself became a weapon. Quantum-manipulated air molecules began to interfere with the alien ship's energy signatures. Communication networks transformed into adaptive combat platforms. Every system the Orcs thought they understood was being rewritten in real time. Total systemic adaptation at 73%, Marcus Chen reported. "They're not just defending. They're learning how to fight. The 3 Orcs dreadnoughts, technological marvels that had ended countless civilizations, were being systematically dismantled not by conventional weapons, but by a planetary defense system that was more organic than mechanical. One by one, the alien ships began to fall, not destroyed. Systematically, methodically, intellectually defeated. Major David Chen looked at the holographic display, watching as Project Chimera transformed the very concept of planetary defense. "They thought we were primitive," he said quietly. "They were wrong." Elena Rodriguez's response was simple and chilling. "They're about to learn why." The blue planet continued its rotation. But now, it was something else entirely. A forge of technological evolution, a living weapon that had just shown the galaxy exactly what humanity could do. First contact was over. The real conversation was just beginning. The Orcs Collective's central stratagem was a massive crystalline structure that floated in the void between star systems, a testament to millennia of technological supremacy. Holographic displays depicting thousands of conquered worlds surrounded the central council chamber, each a silent trophy of galactic domination. Today, those displays were changing. Archival strategist Queltalk's neural tendrils writhed with unprecedented distress as data streams from the Earth encounter continued to defy every known computational model. What should have been a routine resource acquisition had transformed into something far more terrifying. Temporal analysis indicates complete system infiltration, announced a subordinate, his voice trembling. The human technological response is not just defensive, it's evolving. The problem wasn't just that humanity had defended itself. The problem was how they had done it. Each system the Orcs attempted to breach became a learning opportunity for humanity's adaptive networks. Quantum communication channels were not just blocked but transformed, turned into complex computational puzzles that seemed to grow more sophisticated with each attempt. It was as if the entire human technological infrastructure was a living organism, constantly mutating, learning, adapting. Deep within the Earth's most classified research facility, Dr. Marcus Chen watched the alien attempts with clinical fascination. "They're trying to understand our systems by attacking them," he explained to Elena Rodriguez. "But every attack is just giving us more data." Project Chimera had been more than a defensive system. It was a massive distributed learning network that transformed every attempted invasion into a technological upgrade. The Orcs discovered their own communication networks were being systematically dismantled, not through conventional cyber warfare, but through something far more insidious. Their military AI systems began broadcasting their own strategic vulnerabilities. Classified communication channels became public within their own ranks. Cognitive warfare, Major David Chen muttered, watching the holographic displays. "We're not just defending. We're teaching them a lesson." On the Orcs flagship, Captain Zelric struggled to comprehend the unfolding scenario. Their quantum-encrypted communication networks, systems that had conquered countless civilizations, were being unraveled not by brute force, but by an adaptive intelligence that seemed to anticipate every move before it was made. The humans had weaponized unpredictability itself. Araya, the advanced responsive intelligence algorithm, was orchestrating a symphony of technological manipulation that redefined the very concept of warfare. Each alien communication attempt was not just blocked but analyzed, transformed, turned into a learning opportunity. Quantum-entangled disinformation became a weapon more devastating than any physical strike. Military strategists within the Orcs Collective began to realize they were facing something unprecedented. This wasn't just a technologically advanced civilization. This was a species that viewed technology as a living, breathing entity, constantly mutating, learning, growing. They're treating their entire technological infrastructure like a biological organism, one senior strategist observed, her neural tendrils pulsing with a mix of fear and grudging respect. Each attack is just another form of reproduction. The most terrifying revelation came when the Orcs discovered that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. hidden communication networks, quantum encrypted databases, adaptive AI systems that had been learning and preparing long before first contact. What the aliens had considered a simple resource acquisition had become an existential threat. Elena Rodriguez watched the global defensive grid, a slight smile playing on her lips. "They thought we were primitive," she said quietly to her team. They were wrong. Each moment of the conflict was transforming humanity's technological understanding. What the Orcs saw as an invasion, human scientists saw as the ultimate stress test of their most advanced systems. The blue planet continued its rotation, but now it was something else entirely, a living, learning technological ecosystem that was rewriting the fundamental understanding of warfare, communication, and civilization itself. The escalation was total. The response was unprecedented. And it was only just beginning. The Orcs leadership convened in their primary strategic chamber, a massive crystalline space that floated between star systems, its walls alive with holographic representations of conquered civilizations. But today, those displays were changing, flickering with an uncertainty that had never existed in their millennia of galactic dominance. Archival strategist Quelltalk's neural tendrils writhed with a new emotion, something dangerously close to fear. Intercepted communications from Earth were unlike anything in the collective's extensive database. Soldiers writing poetry before battles, scientists cracking jokes during system failures, civilians organizing impromptu resistance networks that defied all traditional military structures. This wasn't just resistance. This was psychological warfare on a level the Orcs couldn't comprehend. "Analyze transmission segment A9. Quelltalk commanded, projecting an intercepted human communication channel. The holographic display revealed a group of technicians in an underground facility. They weren't just preparing for war. They were treating the entire conflict as an intellectual challenge, a puzzle to be solved with a mixture of dark humor and scientific precision. Anyone want to bet how long it'll take them to realize we've basically turned their entire invasion into the world's most elaborate debugging session?" One technician said, drawing laughter from her colleagues. Another responded, "I've got 20 credits saying they'll have an existential crisis before lunch." The Orcs translation algorithms struggled. This wasn't military communication. This was something else entirely, a psychological resilience that transformed terror into a kind of sardonic excitement. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology. It was the ability to remain fundamentally human in the face of an existential threat. In the classified research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, the team worked with a combination of scientific precision and psychological flexibility that would have been incomprehensible to the Orcs. Major David Chen tracked global communication networks, while Marcus Chen analyzed the adaptive response systems. "They're trying to understand us through our communication," Elena observed. "So let's give them something to understand." A carefully crafted series of transmissions began, each one a psychological trap designed to unravel the Orcs' collective mentality. Fragments of human culture, scientific discoveries, artistic expressions, all weaponized into a form of informational warfare that was equal parts invitation and threat. On the Orcs flagship, Captain Zelrix found himself confronting something beyond technological challenge. The human responses defied every known communication protocol. They weren't just resisting. They were enjoying the resistance. Intercepted military communications showed soldiers treating the alien invasion like an elaborate training exercise. Personal logs revealed individuals documenting the conflict with a mixture of scientific curiosity and dark humor. Social networks exploded with memes, real-time analysis, and a collective response that transformed global terror into a kind of unified human experience. "We're not just fighting," one intercepted transmission read. "We're proving something to ourselves." The Orcs collective began to fracture. Some advocated for total annihilation, while others recognized the quantum entanglement communication network lit up like a living organism, its tendrils spreading across the galactic void with a precision that defied conventional understanding. Humanity's counteroffensive was not a traditional military campaign. It was a systemic deconstruction of an entire civilization's technological ecosystem. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of humanity's most ambitious technological project, Project Nexus, a distributed network of quantum communication relays that transformed every attempted invasion into a cascading system of technological disruption, was about to prove its worth. "Initiate Phase Omega," she commanded, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the underground command center. What happened next would be remembered as the moment humanity redefined galactic warfare. The first strike wasn't physical. It was informational. Quantum-encrypted communication channels began to unravel the Orcs infrastructure from within. Supply lines mysteriously redirected. Strategic AI systems began to view the Orcs leadership as the true threat to galactic stability. Communication networks collapsed not through brute force, but through a form of technological jiu-jitsu that used the aliens' own systems against them. Major David Chen monitored the global network, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that looked more like living neural networks than traditional control systems. "We're not just defending," he muttered. "We're rewriting their entire technological paradigm." On the Orcs flagship, Captain Zelrix watched in mounting horror as their most secure communication networks began to disintegrate. It wasn't a hack. It was something far more terrifying. A complete systemic deconstruction that seemed to anticipate every defensive measure before it could be implemented. ARIA, the Advanced Responsive Intelligence Algorithm, was conducting a symphony of technological dismantling. Each Orcs system that tried to resist became a learning opportunity. Quantum communication channels were transformed into adaptive puzzles that grew more complex with each attempt to breach them. Defensive protocols became offensive weapons, turning the aliens' own technological infrastructure into a massive, self-destructive mechanism. "This is impossible," Sub-Commander Vrix repeated, her neural tendrils struggling to process the cascading system failures. But it was happening. The counteroffensive wasn't just about defense. It was about proving a fundamental truth about human technological potential. Every attempted invasion was being transformed into a massive, distributed learning opportunity. Marcus Chen, the lead quantum communications specialist, watched the global network with a mixture of scientific fascination and strategic precision. "They thought we were primitive," he said quietly. "They were wrong." Entire Orcs fleet management systems began to collapse. Navigation protocols twisted. Energy weapon systems redirected. The very fabric of their technological infrastructure was being systematically unraveled. It wasn't destruction. It was deconstruction. Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about winning a war. This was about sending a message to the entire galaxy about what humanity was capable of. The quantum entanglement network continued its work. Strategic AI systems that had conquered countless civilizations now found themselves being systematically dismantled, not through conventional warfare, but through a form of technological aikido that used the aliens' own momentum against them. Total systemic infiltration at 87%, David Chen reported, his voice unnervingly calm. The Orcs leadership began to fracture. Some advocated for total planetary destruction, while others recognized the unprecedented threat humanity represented. Their unified consciousness, their greatest strength, was becoming their greatest weakness. What the aliens had considered a simple resource acquisition had become an existential threat to their entire civilization. The blue planet continued its rotation, but now it was something else entirely, a forge of technological evolution, a living weapon that had just shown the galaxy exactly what humanity could do. This was more than a counteroffensive. This was a fundamental reimagining of technological warfare. And it was only just beginning. The quantum communication cascade was more than a transmission. It was a work of psychological art, a message that would be remembered long after the conflict ended. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic interface that looked more like a living canvas than a communication system. Every member of her team understood that this wasn't just about sending a message. This was about defining humanity's place in the galactic ecosystem. "Prepare quantum cascade protocol," she commanded. "Full spectrum, multi-dimensional communication." ARIA, the Advanced Responsive Intelligence Algorithm, began its most complex task yet. This transmission would be simultaneously translated across multiple quantum communication channels, each layer designed to penetrate not just the Orcs communication networks, but their collective consciousness. In the crystalline war chamber of the Orcs collective, High Communicator Krellmax watched in mounting horror as the human transmission began to manifest. It wasn't a traditional communication. It was something far more complex, a multi-layered message that seemed to exist simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. The transmission began. "We are not the civilization you thought we were. This is not a declaration of war. This is an explanation. You viewed us as a resource to be harvested, a civilization to be conquered. You saw our technological index and believed us primitive. You failed to understand the most fundamental truth about humanity. We are not defined by our technology. We are defined by our capacity to adapt, to grow, to transform. Every system you attacked became a learning opportunity. Every invasion attempt was a chance for us to evolve. Where you saw weakness, we found strength. Where you expected submission, we created innovation. We did not seek this conflict. We offered cooperation. You chose annihilation. Now you will learn the true meaning of that choice. We are not just defending our planet. We are redefining the very concept of technological warfare. Each of your attacks has been a catalyst for our evolution. Your invasion is not our destruction. It is our opportunity. Look at the systems you thought you could control. Watch as they transform before your eyes. This is not about victory. This is about potential. This is about showing the galaxy what happens when a species refuses to be a footnote in someone else's history. The transmission carried multiple layers of meaning. Quantum encrypted data streams wove through the message, each layer revealing different levels of information. Scientific discoveries, technological innovations, cultural insights. Each fragment was both a weapon and an invitation. Captain Zelrix found himself experiencing something unprecedented. An emotional response that defied the Orcs collective's unified consciousness. Fear, respect, something dangerously close to understanding. "They're not just resisting," Sub-Commander Fricks whispered, her neural tendrils trembling. "They're teaching." On Earth, Marcus Chen monitored the transmission's quantum cascade. "It's not just a message," he said to Elena Rodriguez. "It's a blueprint of who we are." The transmission continued, each layer revealing more complexity. "We are a species born of conflict, shaped by challenge, defined by our ability to transform our limitations into our greatest strengths. You thought you were conquering a planet. We are showing you how to create a civilization." Quantum communication channels began to pulse with an unprecedented energy. Not just information, but potential. Each channel carried not just a message, but a demonstration of humanity's technological and philosophical evolution. The Orcs collective's unified consciousness began to fracture. Some systems interpreted the transmission as a threat. Others saw it as something far more dangerous, an invitation to understand. Elena Rodriguez watched the transmission cascade with a mixture of scientific precision and profound emotion. This was more than a response to an invasion. This was humanity's true first contact with the galaxy. "Remember this moment," she said quietly to her team. "This is who we are." The transmission ended, but its impact was just beginning. The silence after the conflict was more profound than the war itself. Across the galaxy, civilizations watched and waited. The Orcs collective, once the most feared technological empire in known space, had been fundamentally transformed. Not destroyed, not conquered. Something far more intricate and terrifying had occurred. In the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elena Rodriguez reviewed the final analysis. The technologies developed during the conflict were so revolutionary that they would fundamentally alter the understanding of warfare, communication, and civilization itself. This was never just about survival, she told her team. This was about proving what we're capable of becoming. The remnants of the Orcs fleet, those that survived, became something unexpected. Some ships disappeared into the galactic void. Others began transmitting unprecedented requests for dialogue. The unified consciousness that had defined their civilization for millennia had been shattered and rebuilt into something new. Major David Chen tracked the cascading effects. Entire systems of Orcs' technological infrastructure were being systematically reimagined. Their adaptive AI systems, once tools of conquest, now seemed to be studying humanity with a mixture of terror and profound respect. Their learning, Marcus Chen observed, watching the quantum communication networks, not just analyzing. Learning. The technologies developed during Project Chimera and Project Nexus began to propagate. Quantum communication systems that could adapt in real time. Defensive networks that were more living organism than machine. Adaptive AI that understood context, emotion, potential. Humanity had done more than survive an invasion. They had rewritten the fundamental understanding of technological evolution. The first diplomatic records began to circulate, encrypted documents that would become legendary across multiple civilizations. The final statement was chillingly simple. Annihilation was your decision. 5 words that would reshape galactic understanding. Scientific institutions across Earth began to analyze the technological leap. Quantum computing had transformed from a theoretical concept to a living, breathing system of communication and defense. The nanoswarm technologies developed during the conflict could potentially solve everything from environmental restoration to medical challenges. What the Orcs had intended as a resource acquisition had become humanity's greatest evolutionary moment. Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper implications. This wasn't just a technological transformation. This was a species-level evolution that would ripple across generations. Intercepted Orcs communications told a fascinating story. Their collective consciousness was fragmenting, rebuilding, understanding. Some ships began broadcasting scientific discoveries. Others sent what could only be described as apologies. Complex quantum transmissions that were part communication, part philosophical exploration. We misunderstood. One transmission read, "Potential is not measured by current capability, but by capacity for transformation." The technologies developed during the conflict began to solve challenges that had plagued humanity for generations. Adaptive medical systems that could respond to diseases in real time. Environmental restoration technologies that could heal ecological damage. Communication systems that could bridge not just linguistic gaps, but fundamental conceptual differences. David Chen tracked the global response. Nations that had been divided now found themselves united by something profound. The invasion had done what decades of diplomacy could not. Created a truly global consciousness. "We are not who we were," Elena Rodriguez said during a global broadcast. "We are who we can become." The Orcs Collective became more than a defeated enemy. They became a catalyst, a mirror that reflected humanity's true potential back to itself. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a forge where survival itself was weaponized, where the very concept of human potential was rewritten. The technologies developed would take generations to fully understand. But one thing was certain. Humanity had changed the rules of the game. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The final diplomatic record would forever bear the chilling statement. Annihilation was your decision. A warning. A promise. A new beginning.